Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 194 called Keegan.
Hello, everybody. This is Allie and Blair, the co-founders of Fertility Rally, and we are here to tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how we can support you on your infertility journey.
So we wanted to let you know that Fertility Rally is the membership group that we created. It's the place we wish we had when we were in the thick of it. We offer support groups. We have private Facebook groups. We have tons of events, lots of videos, blog posts, so much content. We're starting to do IRL events as well, and we want to be there for you no matter where you are on your journey.
Yeah, our favorite part, we had no idea where this would go when we started it. And our favorite part about it is watching all of our members, which is like 300 plus at this point, connect and create true lifelong friendships. We have members that are meeting up in real life. We have members that are supporting each other on Instagram. We have members that call each other best friends now. And honestly, like that is the most rewarding thing to see. We had no idea it would go here. And so we're inviting you to join the Rally fam.
Yeah, it's such a great space. It's a safe space. We also have fun when we can. So we would love for you to be a part of it. Check us out on fertilityrally.com and on Instagram at fertilityrally. Hope to see you guys soon.
Today's episode is presented by Belly. Belly offers modern prenatal vitamins optimized for fertility, prenatal, and post-pregnancy health. To learn more about how to optimize your fertility and pregnancy health, check out their vegan-friendly, dairy-free, non-GMO vitamins for both men and women at bellybaby.com. That's spelled BELIBABY.com. The best part, if you use code ALLIE15, you'll get 15% off your first month of either Belly Women or Belly Men. Again, that's code ALLIE15, ALI15 for 15% off. Thanks, Belly. All right, everybody. So today I am talking to Keegan Prue, whose book, The IVF Dad, chronicles he and his wife's struggles with infertility and all of the things. He also recently spoke at our Fertility Rally live event, which was incredible. So I don't want to give you the details. I'd rather just have him tell it to you guys in his own words. But it's a great story, and spoiler alert, because this comes out in the very beginning of the episode, but he does have 2 daughters now, but it was not without lots of twists and turns and heartache. So without further ado, this is Keegan's infertility story. All right, Keegan, it's so good to talk to you. How are you doing?
Oh, great. It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This definitely feels like a full circle moment. I've spent many days driving to work listening to Infertile AF. So pretty cool.
You have? Oh my gosh. You're probably so sick of my voice, but it's going to be trippy to hear your own story, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So thank you for writing in. You sent me an email a while ago, talking about what you've been through with your family and your wife. So let's just start at the beginning. We're also going to talk about your book, which is called The IVF Dad, but we'll get to that in a little while. So let's start with what I always start with, which is, did you always want to be a parent?
I did. I've been surrounded by kids through a lot of my life. My mother runs an in-home daycare. And so from the time I was 5, in addition to my little sister, there were just like, kids were always around. I'd come home from school and there would be, a couple of kids running around. And then in my professional life, I'm in education. So I worked as a teacher, an elementary school teacher, and in elementary schools for 7 or 8 years. And through all of that, I think that definitely made me just really excited to be a parent and to have kids. Yeah. So
I get some good teacher vibes from you. You would be like the cool teacher, but not trying too hard. Like you seem very chill.
Yeah. Not too intense about it, right? Like you gotta chill where you can, because life's serious enough.
So. What do you teach?
When I was a teacher, I'm no longer teaching, but taught elementary school. My favorite place to spend time was in the kindergarten rooms, because there's just like cuteness off the charts. Our school had a whole room just full of blocks. And if it was a stressful day, you could find me hanging out with the kindergartners, building block towers for hours.
That takes a very special, particular personality to be able to do that. Because when I went into my kids' kindergarten classrooms, I was like, get me out of here.
Yeah. And
So
there
bless
were
you for
wild
doing that
times.
kind of work.
Yeah. And once upon a time, got the unfortunate honor of being the one who had to train the kindergarten boys on how to use the bathroom. That is the day I would like to forget, but
Okay.
still came back to try to be a parent after all that. So,
All right. So tell me how you met your wife.
we met online, as is, the modern world we live in. We were in New York City at the time. Olivia, my wife, is originally from Seattle. I'm originally from the far, far reaches of upstate New York. And so, yeah, the magic of the internet brought us together in New York City after all the craziness of dating in New York City. And we, just really connected instantly. We were, in our early 30s at the time, definitely just at that point of being like, we're ready for a relationship, for commitment, for a long term thing. And so we connected right away, and talked very quickly about our plans for the future, including kids. I remember being on our third date. We went up to the botanical garden in the Bronx, and we were riding the 4 train back into the city to go to my apartment. And Olivia just asked me, what do you think about kids? And there was just no hesitation. I was like, yeah, absolutely, want to have kids. Definitely hope to have 2 or 3 kids. And so we were very open about that from the beginning.
Okay. So what happened when you guys started to try?
And then we hit the wall.
Right.
so right.
There's always a but.
Yeah. And moved out of the city. That was part of our long-term plan, moved to upstate to get the house and the dog and the kids, and got the house, got the dog, and totally hit the brick wall when it came to having kids. So we started to try to conceive in summer of 2017, which is when we were moving upstate. We sort of felt in a spot where we were ready to, if we got pregnant tomorrow, it'd be great. So we, went through the next 6 months, and nothing had happened. We had, a couple times, one time in particular where Olivia's period was a couple days late. So we were all excited. We went to, rushed off to the pharmacy, bought the pregnancy test, and it was negative. And so, at that point, it had only been a few months. We chalked it up to, well, it'll happen soon. But, fast forward to 6 months, 7 months after we started trying, and nothing had happened yet. And I think we were both kind of feeling like something might be going on here. And I remember this very cold day in upstate New York in January when we went out for a walk and just kind of talked about what was going on. How are we feeling about things? This is not happening as quickly as we thought it would. And we knew what our goals were. We knew we wanted to have 2 or 3 kids. We knew we were in our early 30s, and that the clock was starting to work against us a little bit. And so it was that point at which we kind of first had that conversation in which we both acknowledged, this is not going as quickly as we thought. What do we need to do? And so that's kind of when we got proactive and started to get things lined up in terms of just getting ourselves checked out. So,
what did that look like for you guys? Was it easy to find an RE or a clinic, or how did you have friends who were going through it that you were able to ask, or how did you even get the ball rolling with taking those next steps?
Yeah, it was a little difficult at first because we're definitely in that phase where we weren't totally comfortable talking with other people about it yet, and also didn't know how much of a problem are we looking at. And so we just started kind of at the basic level, went to Olivia scheduled an appointment with her regular OB and kind of said, here's where we're at. What do we need to do? So they did some, testing on both of us, sent me to our fertility clinic that we actually ended up using to do my semen analysis, did all the hormone tests on Olivia and other things. And unfortunately kind of came back to us with we don't see any reason why this shouldn't be working. Everything looks pretty normal to us. And so, got that really hard conversation that so many know about, which is there's no clear reason why things aren't working. So
yeah, that is a hard pill to swallow when they're like, well, it's unexplained infertility, or, everything looks good. So just keep going, it's so much easier sometimes when you have a diagnosis because you have something you can focus on and a plan of attack.
It is. And we did learn more over time. So Olivia's OB said, let's try 3 rounds of Letrizole, timed intercourse, and let's just see if that helps. Maybe, that will just kind of be the kick that you need, so to speak. And that didn't work. Went through 3 months, nothing happened each time. So that was a big letdown. But simultaneous to that, we kind of, I don't know if it was just, intuition, whatever you call it, or just kind of knowing like it might take a while to get in with the fertility clinic, but we had made an initial consult appointment with the fertility clinic that's here in the area and landed on that basically as those 3 rounds of Letrizole were coming to an end. And so it was good timing, but what we sort of learned there, once we got in there and they did some additional testing on Olivia, and they found out was that her AMH level was actually low for her age, which was not something that the regular OBGYN had picked up on.
Okay.
So that was definitely a frustrating moment where it was like, we thought everything was fine, but just, it was sort of a lesson to us to be proactive, and to also how important it is to get the advice of somebody who's really an RE who's in the field and knows all the ins and outs.
Right. Because sometimes people can miss things or they don't know what to look for. And, the medical teams are oftentimes really awesome, but sometimes you have to go in with your own questions or your own, can we look at this X, Y, and Z, advocating for yourself. We're always talking about that on the show and Infertility Rally.
Absolutely. And so that sort of set us very quickly down a path to IVF. The RE was, we love our doctor. She's been, like our IVF Sherpa through this entire thing. And we like that she was always very upfront and always very clear and direct about what she was recommending. And so her kind of read of Olivia's AMH levels and our situation and our family building goals, she essentially said, I would recommend starting IVF, and that's going to give you the best shot at success. So that's where we were at, right?
Yeah.
It was sort of at that point, a little over a year after we'd started trying. And so not what we expected at all, but we Olivia and I kind of just looked at each other and were like, okay, we got to do this, whatever it takes.
Did you know anybody else who was going through it?
Not that we knew of at the time. We definitely found more over time. We found our tribe, but that took some time. But no, at that time, we definitely didn't. And so that's kind of what led me to the initial, just a lot of research. Like I said, I spent so many commutes back and forth listening to episodes of your podcast, other podcasts, reading blogs, other things, to just get a sense of like, what are we up against and how do these stories go? Because I didn't know much of anything. Yeah. So, and that was just like the first step, which was really helpful just to get a sense of what are the different types of diagnoses that might be out there. What are the different types of treatments? How do those work? What are the different ways this can go? And it was definitely intimidating because, you learn very quickly that one of the hardest things is that there is no guarantee in reproductive treatment.
Absolutely.
It's always a, just down to what you're fortunate enough to get and so many different factors. So that was hard, but it did feel at least like we finally had something that we felt could lead us to success.
Okay. So what were you looking at specifically that you had learned that you were going to like arm yourself with, or, that was going to kind of change the path that you guys were on?
Yeah, I think, it was just understanding that that doing the IVF process was going to help us eliminate a lot of the uncertainty that we just didn't know about, and would at least provide some degree of being able to get some control back, because it was just so much uncertainty. And so definitely it kind of went in clear-eyed with this idea, like, this is not a silver bullet. It's not necessarily going to lead us to success, but it feels a lot better than what we've been doing. Which has totally not been successful, and definitely at that point we're hitting that kind of burnout of like we can't just keep trying these things we're not sure are going to work. We need to do whatever's going to give us the best shot at success. And of course we were fortunate, right? Like, I'm fortunate to have great insurance coverage. New York State recently had passed their mandate for large employers to cover 3 rounds of IVF. So
so that was your coverage through work. You had 3 rounds.
Yep. Those coverage through work.
That's awesome.
So very fortunate to have that in place. So yeah, it felt, it just felt like finally, perhaps this could be something that could give us a lot better shot than what we had before.
So how were you and Olivia doing as a couple going through this so far? Like, you haven't, it's been a struggle. I know there's a lot more to come, but like, were you guys kind of on the same page? Was there any, what was going on with your relationship?
Yeah, it definitely, we were very much on the same page. And I think because we were very conscientious about just communicating as much as possible and making time to check in about how we were feeling and just thinking through, how might this go? What are the different options looking at? We'd come home each day and say, hey, I listened to, I read this thing today about IUIs, or I heard this story on this podcast today. And it gave us a chance to kind of talk through and just be more comfortable sharing how we were feeling and talking very frequently about all the feelings that were coming up, and about the different options and what we felt about them, because that's such a crucial conversation to have with your partner in this process. Is where are our boundaries? What are we open to? What are we not open to? Is there anything that's off the table for us, or are there things that maybe we could be open to, but we need to do some processing just over time to figure out whether that's an option for us? Because I think that's a very real thing too. Later on in our journey, we, got to a point where we were looking at adoption, fostering, other types of family building options. And that ended up being a really positive step. But I think that sort of showed that there might be things that you think you're not open to, or that, your journey pushes you to think differently about over time. So,
yeah. And I think it's important to have those conversations throughout, kind of stepping back at different points in, your story, because you might change, the bar might change, or, you might hear about something that, oh, I didn't know about that. I would try this, or, so it's great to have that initial conversation and then do kind of little check-ins, I think, as you move through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that really helped us during this time is it helped give us a little bit of preview time before we were in like the thick of IVF to start to get a sense of how do we support each other, where do we kind of go when we're both feeling down about the process, and what do we need from each other during those times? Because Lord knows there was some shitty times ahead. So
right. Okay. So tell me what happened next.
Yeah. So started IVF.
I want to hear about the shitty times, Keegan.
The shitty times, they will come. The shit stream.
Lay it on me.
So hopped into IVF. First cycle was pretty good. We, I think, ended up with 4 embryos at the end of it. Did a fresh transfer in October of 2018 and, entered what I lovingly call beta hell. We're thrilled. We found out on Halloween night, actually, we got the call from our fertility clinic that Olivia was pregnant. And, it was this like celebratory moment that I look back now and seems so kind of sad and premature, knowing now what was going to happen.
But how do you know that? You don't know.
Oh, you don't. Yeah. You just never know. But it's funny. I look back on that Halloween night and kids coming up. We have like a big Halloween village that we live in. And so kids were coming up and we were just like, oh, this is so great. Next year, we're going to have our own kid. But then, of course, a couple of days later, went back for the second beta draw, and that number was not doubling. And so we kind of entered into a few weeks where HCG would go up a little bit, stagnate, go up a little bit, and was really hard because, of course, the clinic at that point was essentially like, it's going up. That's good, but it's not going up fast enough. And so there's really the only way we're going to tell is by waiting until we can confirm on ultrasound. And even then, the ultrasound, we end up having to go through a few of those too, because the first few were sort of inconclusive. It'd be like, oh, okay, there's a little bit of something growing there. We're not sure what it is. And so it was this really difficult, like probably 6-week period. It felt like about 16 years, but
beta hell is a great way to describe it. I know so many people listening have been through that, where you get that bit of hope, but you're like terrified for the next test, and sometimes it goes up, and some they're just like, hold on, there's nothing really you can do, and you're literally in this limbo, which is so stressful.
It is, and we kind of finally found out like a resolution to that cycle, which did end in a miscarriage. It was a blighted ovum, which essentially meant that there was not development.
Yeah, I had one of those as well. Sucks.
Yeah, not fun. And definitely the hardest part was just that up and down. The whole process of fertility treatment is like one up and down after another, but to have that intensive period where it was like the HCG would almost double, and then it's like, okay, here's hope again. Hope's back. And then the next time it'd be like, it didn't quite go up as much as we thought. And that was definitely one of those shitty times. And probably the worst thing about that one was I was on a work trip. I had to like get in the car and go on a work trip right after our final ultrasound. That was sort of didn't have conclusive results yet. We were waiting on a call from the RE to kind of find out what their take was on that last ultrasound. And so found that out as I was like getting to a hotel on Long Island, about 3.5 hours from home. And then had to have the not only the terrible conversation with the person I was traveling with, of like, my wife is having a miscarriage right now, so I'm going to need to go home tomorrow.
Yeah.
But also just the worst part of it, which was just being apart from Olivia, in that moment, I just remember sitting on our hotel bed on the phone with her. We're both crying. She's like laying on the floor in our living room crying. And that just being the worst part of being separated during such a horrible time.
Absolutely.
So, so that was definitely the entering into the shittier times of things. So that kind of resolved itself. We had, as everybody who's been there knows, there's kind of just like a period of waiting after a loss, for hormone levels to come back to zero. And so forth.
We always call that waiting to be unpregnant, which is like the worst. You need that level to go back down, and it's like the worst.
Oh, totally the worst. And this was during the holiday season, and a couple of friends announced their pregnancies, and so that was not a fun time either. But we landed after the new year, and we fortunately had a couple of embryos on ice. So we're like, let's get back on the horse, as so many people have heard after, one loss, that we heard a lot of this thing happens. It's unfortunate. It's really sad. But these things happen. So we're like, okay, let's regroup. Hopefully that was just a fluke, and we'll go back for an FET, in around February of the following year. So did that. And this after the second FET, got pregnant again. Really fortunate for that, and everything was looking great for the first 12 weeks. We graduated from the IVF clinic, saw a heartbeat, saw a little gummy bear shaped fetus kind of bouncing around, and we're feeling good. And then definitely had the worst experience of all, which was going for our 12-week ultrasound at the OBGYN. And had the dreaded and truly awful "there's no heartbeat" conversation.
That is truly awful. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was definitely, without a doubt, the lowest point in the journey, because we just had. It was kind of a weird. Obviously, it was a weird day and an awful day, but it was our first appointment, kind of back in the general pregnant population, back with the regular OBGYN. The ultrasound tech, unfortunately, was really not particularly compassionate or caring about it, and so it was really awful to just hear that. And then, of course, even just the logistics after that. If I remember sitting and talking with the doctor and being like, when can Olivia get in for a D&C? Like, we're not going to wait around for 4 or 5 days or whatever it is, just knowing like. Yeah, our baby passed away inside her, and there's nothing we can do about it. So fortunately, they were able to get Olivia in for a D&C that night. But that was certainly the lowest point of the entire the shitty parts of the journey. And from there was when I think we pressed pause for a couple of months.
Understandably,
and really took some time to both just kind of grieve and be there for each other. And of course, it kind of looked different for both of us during that time. There were days when one of us would kind of feel like, okay, it feels like we're emerging somewhat back toward being able to find joy in anything. And then, the next day it would be like, no, not doing it.
Not there yet.
Not there yet. So
it is.
It was definitely time for a pause, right?
As everybody knows, grief is not linear, and you kind of never know when it's going to hit you and affect you and all that stuff. So going through that trauma and that grief, it's like you just kind of got to go hour by hour sometimes, because you never know how you're going to feel or what might trigger you, or, your partner might be feeling one way and you're feeling another way. It's really, really complicated and tricky. My heart goes out to anybody going through that right now.
Today's episode is sponsored by Luna. You guys, is there anything better than a restorative night of deep, uninterrupted sleep? Think about it. When was the last time you slept hard? If, like so many other people and like me, you seem to fall short of a really restful and rejuvenating night of sleep, I'm really excited to share a new tool with you guys. And believe me, I've tried all the things: melatonin, bath soaks, meditation apps, over-the-counter sleep aids. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But then I tried the Luna weighted blanket, and I have to tell you all about it and how you can get one for 20% off. Okay, so recently I got something very heavy in the mail and I couldn't figure out what it was, but it was the 15-pound gray classic cotton Luna weighted blanket. I used it that night and Vince and I were fighting over it, and I truly did have a more restful, deeper night of sleep, and for the first time in weeks. I didn't know much about weighted blankets, but I Googled it and I learned that they're based on a method called deep pressure stimulation, which is used by therapists to calm patients by applying firm, even pressure to the body. So therapists have been using this method in clinics for a long time, and now they recommend that patients keep a weighted blanket on hand to experience the same benefits at home. So the pressure of a weighted blanket, this is very cool. It actually promotes the production of melatonin and serotonin, which help reduce anxiety and calm the nervous system. So in a very overwhelming moment, it can help you decompress. And when you're very, very tired, it can help you get an amazing night's sleep. It's kind of like a really tight hug. Thanks to deep pressure stimulation, a Luna weighted blanket helps induce a natural sense of calm and relaxation to both your body and your mind. They're not like the cheap, poorly made blankets filled with plastic beads. Luna's blankets are made with the highest quality, medical-grade glass beads and sewn into a gridwork pattern within their super soft fabrics for perfect weight distribution. How cool is that? Now, after using this, I can definitely attest to how pretty much immediately calming it is to your entire nervous system. It's kind of insane. So guess what? I want you guys to try it too. And you can get 20% off your Luna order with my link plus free shipping when you visit lunablanket.com/infertileaf. Again, it's LUNABLANKET.com/infertileaf. This is the very best Luna offer available right now, so don't wait another night. Order now for free shipping and 20% off your next purchase at lunablanket.com/infertileaf. Sweet dreams. Today's episode is sponsored by Happy Healthy Hippie. If you guys are listening to this, you're no doubt looking for ways to boost your vitality, support your health, and just feel better. When it comes to supplements, I know it takes a lot of trial and error to find what works for you and what you specifically really need. Well, I'm excited to tell you guys today about a brand that has made choosing supplements easy, and I'm really enjoying them. They're called Happy Healthy Hippie, and they are a line of intentionally crafted, earth-grown herbal supplements to help support your whole self. I love that, coming at it from a whole self perspective. The ones that I've been taking are called Joy-Filled and Be Grounded, and I immediately love that they're all about holistic, high-quality support. Joy-Filled was made to help combat worries and anxieties, to uplift your mood, and to sustain your energy levels. And after taking them regularly, I am happy to report that my stress levels do feel noticeably different. Be Grounded was made to calm both your body and your mind. And again, after taking it, I do feel just a little bit more centered, which is huge for me. As you all know, especially going into this time of year, it's a great time to support your wellness routine with natural, effective, and simple supplements. I know that we all want to feel better daily, and then we all deserve that. Happy Healthy Hippie was created out of passion for living intentionally, well-being, and soaking up the simple wonders of the world. And if you want to join the rest of their happy, healthy customers, you are in luck today, guys. I have an exclusive deal for Infertile listeners. You can get 50% off your first subscription when you visit happyhealthyhippie.com/infertileaf. That's spelled happyhealthyhippie.com/infertileaf. And this is Happy Healthy Hippie's best offer right now. So get in on the goodness now. Order today for free shipping and 50% off your first subscription at happyhealthyhippie.com/infertileaf.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so that pushed us definitely to do what was right, I think at the time, which was just to kind of press pause and say, again, there's the waiting to be unpregnant part of things, but there's also just we've been, riding this horse nonstop for almost a year at this point.
Yeah.
We've just had 2 miscarriages back to back. We've put off travel. We've put off so many things. And we're just not mentally ready to kind of jump back in, because the other thing we kind of realized at that point was we're going to need to go back for another retrieval, and we're going to need to do genetic testing, because we did have the remains tested of the second pregnancy, and it was a trisomy. So we knew that there was some genetic issues there that weren't compatible with life. So that was helpful to know, but definitely sent us toward a path of, okay, we need to do genetic testing going forward.
So did you have one embryo left from that first round?
Yeah. So we had one embryo left from that first round.
What do you do with that embryo?
So that embryo, we also thawed out and tested after the next IVF round. So had went back for another retrieval after a few months of that break. And I think we had 3 viable embryos from second round of IVF. So we sent all of those out for genetic testing, and sent the other one that had been previously frozen out for genetic testing.
Gotcha.
So that kind of led to an interesting situation where that embryo was frozen and thawed twice.
Yep.
But spoiler alert, that double-thawed embryo is currently 31 and a half weeks gestation in my wife. So it's very, very cool and kind of a crazy.
That's amazing. But we'll get to that, because that's
we'll get
baby
to that.
too, right?
Yeah, that's the non-shitty part of the story.
Wow.
So yeah,
God, science is so incredible.
It's mind blowing. Yeah, it's mind blowing. So yeah, went back for that round, sent out the embryos for genetic testing, and found out that we had 2 genetically normal embryos, one of which was the one from our first round, and one of which was from the second round. And so, while our RE kind of counseled us on, double frozen embryos, double thawed embryos have just like a slightly lowered implantation rate. But again, science is amazing, and these embryos can totally work out. But said, let's keep that one. Let's use the embryo from this most recent round that's only been thawed once, or that will only be thawed once, and let's do an FET. So went back, had that FET, and that was the FET that led to our wonderful daughter, Eliza, who was born in July of 2020.
Wow. Okay. So this is the third transfer.
Yeah.
Okay. And how was that? Tell me about getting the call that you guys were pregnant again, and that pregnancy, we talk often, as as a listener, about pregnancy after loss is really anxiety ridden. So how was that for you guys?
Oh, totally anxiety ridden, right? We it was such a stark contrast to that first call I kind of described a few minutes ago, getting that very first "you're pregnant" call on Halloween night, and we were just like celebrating, like whooping, dancing in our kitchen, and compared to this third one, where we got the call and we were like, okay, this is good. This is good. But what's going to happen in 2 days when we go back for the beta? And then what's going to happen when we go in a couple of weeks for an ultrasound, if 100%. We get that far?
Always waiting for the other shoe to drop, right?
Totally. And even still to this day, that part just never leaves you. And so, yeah, it was always, if we get to the next ultrasound, it was very hard to trust at all that things were going to work. And even after, getting through kind of the 12-week ultrasound with that pregnancy, there was still anxiety, and really up until like Eliza was like born and in our hands, I wouldn't say I totally ever felt 100%, like calm and chill that this is all good.
I so get that. Were you guys able to do like baby shower and that kind of thing? I know so many people like don't even purchase anything, after pregnancy after loss. It's just too nerve-wracking, or you feel superstitious about it. What was your take?
So we were going to do a baby shower, but we got good old COVID came, and
I remember COVID.
Still
COVID, around, kind of, right?
That happened, but there was definitely discussions around the baby shower and like our degree of comfort doing it, and like how long would we wait? The idea of doing a baby shower too early was something that was definitely kind of a trigger for us. We're like, no, we gotta get to a point where we feel comfortable enough to do this. And honestly, even if COVID hadn't happened, I think there absolutely still would have been anxiety around like, are we, putting a jinx on ourselves by having hope around this?
So can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And even just like setting up Eliza's room before she was born, there were certain things that were really hard and that we just needed time. And there would be, definitely points where we were just like, nope, not ready to set that thing up yet, or not
like
ready
what
to,
in particular?
One thing, Olivia made a really nice embroidered kind of pattern with, it's like a field of flowers and I think like a rainbow. And the last piece of that embroidery, which we were going to hang in Eliza's room, was putting her name on it. And that was something I don't think I let Olivia embroider her name on it until possibly after she was born.
Yeah, I get
because
it.
that felt like a little bit of a step too far for me. And that was on me, right? Olivia was ready to go ahead and embroider Eliza's name on it. But I was like, I'm just not quite ready for that. That feels like a little too much of a step for me.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Okay.
Yeah,
so
definitely the whole pregnancy was difficult. And one thing we were very thankful for is, Eliza was a very active baby in the womb. She was, kicking and grooving and doing her moonwalks all the time. So that was really helpful. But even then, we were at the point where we were in COVID. Olivia and I were both working from home. And there would definitely be days where I was like, if I hadn't heard in 2 hours something from Olivia about like, oh, baby's moving, I would like come downstairs and be like, okay, can you lay down on the couch for a few minutes and like have some orange juice and see if she'll wriggle a little bit.
Did you guys do like a home Doppler or anything like that?
We didn't. We've gone back and forth on that.
Yeah.
I thought I would potentially be like a little bit too obsessive if we had that option, but absolutely have thought about it 645 times.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Eliza is here. How old is she now?
She turned 2 in July.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, tell us about the second embryo that's been thawed twice.
Yeah. And so then second embryo, we,
how long before you guys jumped back in?
So we gave it about a year until Eliza was about a year old, until we just kind of reached back out to the fertility clinic and said, let's kind of talk about our options, see where we are, because we were kind of thinking at that time, do we need to go back and potentially do another egg retrieval to bank more embryos? Because we know that based on our track record, like the most we've ever gotten out of a cycle that's a genetically normal viable embryo is 1. Mm-hmm. So we're like going for 1 on every cycle. So we're like, if we only have this 1, should we try to get another before we go back for an embryo transfer? And our RE was like, I think it's best to give this one a shot. We know that you are in the really fortunate position of you've gotten pregnant every time you've had a transfer, which is not typically the case. So you're very fortunate in that sense. Let's give this one a shot. And then, if heaven forbid it doesn't work, like we're only a couple months down the line, it's still going to be okay. We can still work toward another transfer. And so that was really helpful for us to hear, because I think we were definitely living in that anxiety of like, we only have this 1, like this could be our last shot. And so, yeah, we weren't really sure, like, should we definitely came into it thinking we better do another retrieval just to kind of hopefully get some insurance in the bank of like maybe 1 more good embryo.
Totally. And how old were you guys at the time?
At that time, Olivia was 35 and I was 33, I want to say. Okay. So yeah, we decided based on that advice from the RE that we would go ahead, do another FET and give this embryo that's been thawed twice and biopsied, give it a shot, and transferred that embryo in February of 2022. And we're now 8 months pregnant and expecting another little girl in October. So
I love it.
Yeah.
That's such a cool story. So tell me how did that feel with the second time? Again, the anxiety and all the things, like, was it different on this pregnancy or was it still like, holy shit?
Oh, it was definitely still there. The biggest like qualitative difference in this pregnancy is just chasing around a toddler, which I understand. So this is like, I would have been so annoyed listening to somebody being like, chase around a toddler. I want to chase around a toddler, but like I would give $1 million to chase around a toddler.
Right.
But that was very different, right? There's different demands on our time. And so the good thing of that is like, it has made time go by more quickly. But is the anxiety still there? Like, absolutely. There is still, we had a couple of weeks ago, we were on the phone with the OB because Olivia felt like the baby was just not moving as much as normal. Everything was fine. But I think we're much more attuned with things like that. And just like it, definitely still live in that anxiety and still feel in the same way as I did with Eliza. Like, we will fully breathe out and relax when this baby is born and in our arms, even though there's of course like no reason to in theory be concerned. Like, everything is utterly normal, but it just doesn't leave you, right?
But we talk about sometimes how funny it is, or like strange, I guess, when you're not the kind of person who got pregnant very easily and just not even having any anxiety through your pregnancy. It's just like, here we go. This is it. Like, give me all the ice cream, like all that stuff. Like the people that aren't worried and shitting their pants every time they're not feeling the baby move, or,
I know,
all that stuff. So it's just such a different experience. And I have to say, like, with my pregnancies, I did get pregnant with my daughter naturally with no issue. So I kind of had that for my first pregnancy. And then the second one was so different. So I kind of know both worlds of it. And God, I had no idea how lucky I had it that first go round,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely been easier in some ways this round of just like having been through one healthy pregnancy is a big proof point that definitely gives some level of comfort. But yeah, it's hard, right? Like it's still mind boggling to me to see somebody like posting a pregnancy announcement and it's got like the kid's full name on it. And they're just like,
right.
Talking
or like
about
those crazy stories when people don't know they're pregnant and they go in with like indigestion and they have a baby. Yeah. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, totally.
Well, anyway, so tell us, okay, when did you start thinking about writing the IVF Dad, your book?
Yeah, it was around last year, like last summer of 2021. And I just had started to do a little bit of writing just about our story. And I think started it with the idea of like, oh, maybe I'll submit this to like Modern Love in the New York Times or something. And quickly just kept writing and hit probably a couple months later. And I was like, holy shit, I think this is becoming a book maybe. But definitely started it, I think, just as an opportunity to kind of like process what we'd been through, but it quickly kind of just blew up into something where not only did it feel really good to write out and process everything we'd been through, but it felt like this could maybe help some people out there too. I mean, I definitely, in reflecting on our journey, while it was amazing to have so many podcasts, blogs, et cetera, that I could draw upon to learn about the process and feel more comfortable with it, most of those were written, recorded, et cetera, produced by and for women, which is 100% okay, right? Like that's totally justified. Not
right,
to take
but you're like, where are my guys at?
But yeah, it was such a weird, unique, like I can remember the one or two times hearing, men come to share their story, and it was just helpful for me to hear that perspective. And so I think writing made me realize, maybe there's something here that could be helpful for men and couples, because certainly in the process of opening up more about our journey, which we did in kind of various ways throughout, had just learned from how many family, friends, other people we knew who had been through infertility were going through it at the same time as we were, and we had no idea. And so it was great to connect about it, but then also to kind of realize it was so great when I kind of so great to have people who are in the shit with you. But great to know that there were some people who I could connect to and other guys I knew who we could just kind of text and knew what we were talking about and understood what it was like to be going through infertility.
Right.
And so as I kept writing, I was like, this could be something that could be really helpful, and definitely just said, the ultimate goal here and the ultimate thing that will make this all worth it is literally just finding one person who this is helpful for. And that's all I want to do, because it's a way to just turn all the shitty times into something that can be hopefully meaningful for somebody else.
Was there anything difficult in writing the book that like to relive, or that you just felt was like too much to get back into? Because I know when I started writing about what I had gone through with my stuff, I had to wait. I couldn't do it for like 2 years. I couldn't even touch it. It was just too raw, too hard. I was like, I can't go back there. Like, it was just too much for me. So how is it with you?
Yeah, same. Definitely relate to that. The one of the last chapters I wrote was the chapter about our losses and just how we kind of navigated that, because it did feel too hard to get into. And I wrote that chapter, I think, right before our most recent transfer, because I think I kind of felt at that point like I've got to get this out before we're in that space of potentially being pregnant again, or in the 2-week wait, because I don't know that I'm going to be able to write about this at that point. Like, it may feel like too much if we do get pregnant again, because I'm not going to want to bring back those old feelings and experiences. So that pushed me into it. And it was actually in some ways like the best thing to write out, although it was hard. And definitely there were times writing that chapter where I'd be like, I'd be crying writing it. I'd be showing more of it, because I would kind of show all this writing to Olivia as I was doing it. And we'd both be crying looking back on these experiences. But I think it was good and good actually being in that space where we were getting ready to go back for another transfer, because I felt like it really helped me tap more into what was I really feeling during these times, and the rawness of it, to try to be really honest about how difficult it was. I think in some ways, now as I kind of think about being toward the end of our family building journey, although certainly not like at the end of infertility, I think it's something that's with us forever. Yeah, I think I was in a good space then to write about it in a way that's really raw and open, because I could still feel that and felt that possibility looking ahead to the next transfer of like, I don't know how this is going to turn out, and I know how bad it can go.
Right. Well, I have to commend you for, doing something that not many people do. I also want to shout out 2 guys in the community. I hope you've connected with them. And if not, and people listening, Pursuing Fatherhood, who's Alex. I don't know if you've met him, but he's amazing. And one of the kind of more pioneering people. And then Wes at Detour to Dad. They're both on Instagram. They've both been Fertility Rally Live, speakers, and we've had them at some of our events and stuff. But people like you guys are just really, changing things. And, I know that guys need that support. So I just commend you for doing it. I want everybody to check out IVF Dad, and you are on Instagram. Is it IVF Dad? Is that your handle?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. So on Instagram at IVF Dad. Is there anything else that you want to mention before we wrap, Keegan, about just being kind of a guy, in this field, in this industry, trying to make a difference?
Yeah. Well, first, definitely, I love those folks you mentioned. I think there's a growing group of guys out there who are sharing their stories and connecting and designing. Other folks are designing like private Facebook groups and things like that, which I think are so helpful to just have a space to share in. So I love that work that's happening, and it is growing. But the most important thing I think that can be hard for everybody, of course, in infertility, but really hard for men, is just like taking that first step to open up and tell somebody what's going on, and telling somebody who's not your partner, right? Too, because it's important to talk to your partner. But I also feel very strongly that you need some other people who are like external to your relationship, who you can share about what you're going with. And that can be, you have so many options, right? It can be a friend if you're comfortable with it. It could be a therapist. It could be, if you're somebody who like faith is important to you, could be somebody in kind of your faith sphere. It could be a counselor. There's so many options out there. Or you can find somebody online, like go on Instagram and send a DM to the IVF Dad, and I'll chat with you too. But
that's awesome.
I think the most important thing is just like, although it's so scary, take that first step to tell somebody what you're going through, because even just that act of getting it out there in the world and saying what you're going through, even if it's just typing to somebody you've never met on Instagram, will make you feel better and will make you feel less alone. And then from there, hopefully you can have the experience that I feel like we kind of had, which was that it got easier every time to open up, and that we found these amazing connections and really deepened relationships with friends and family who we had no idea had gone through this shitty path too.
Yeah.
But feel so much more connected with so many of these people who really know what it's like to be in the trenches. So important.
And nobody has to go through this alone. No matter what you're going through, there's somebody out there that's going through a similar situation. Even if you think your situation's very rare, or I haven't heard about this before, you can connect with me always at Infertile. I have stories. You can connect with Keegan at the IVF. We can connect you guys to people if we know somebody, like this. I feel like this community, that's why we always say it's the worst club with the best members. It's everybody is really wanting to help each other out, because it sucks so much. And anything we can all do to help each other is just worth it.
It does. And hopefully, the other thing I always try to kind of emphasize too, right, is the book is called The IVF Dad, but I really hope it's not just about IVF, it's about IUI. It talks about adoption, fostering, other family building options. And it's not just for men too. I've heard from a lot of women and couples who are reading it together. And that's really how I hope it will be useful to people, is to help it feel like you can kind of build your relationship and have these difficult conversations, because it's not easy. It's you don't get into a relationship and get married or a partnership thinking like, oh, we're going to walk through this awful path together. Although everybody has their difficulties, but there are ways, I think, to hopefully try to kind of strengthen your bond, and definitely have found all the difficult things we went through on our path to parenthood have only helped us as we've gone forward, right? Like the parenting journey is hard too, hard in different ways. And so having had a lot of really difficult conversations over the years, and just times where we really had to support each other when we were feeling awful and grieving and, having anxiety or just depressed about where we were on our journey, has turned into a strength that we can take with us.
Thank you all so much for listening. And thanks again to Keegan. Definitely check out his book, The IVF Dad. You can also check him out on Instagram at The IVF Dad. You can also check me out on Instagram always at Infertile Stories. And also please check out Fertility Rally, which is open now. We open the first week of every single month. So we are open now and accepting new members. And we would love to have you join our family. We've got multiple support groups a week. We have 3 private Facebook groups. We have lots of events, both IRL and virtual, and it's just this amazing community, and it's the place I wish I had when I was in the thick of all the shit that I was going through. So please don't feel alone. You're not alone. Join our family, check out our family, DM us if you have any questions, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.